On this episode of China Uncensored, don't partake in the forbidden fruit. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Doing business in China. It's a foolproof way to make huge profits. Say you're a company like, I don't know, Apple. You have a great, innovative, original product that surely the 1.3 billion people in China would love. Now, conditions apply anytime a Western company wants to do business in China. But it's totally worth it, right? Well, it turns out it's a business plan that makes about as much sense as this.
You see, phase 1, collect underpants. Phase 2, phase 3, profit.
And Apple might be discovering that getting to phase 3 is harder than it thought.
This soap opera between the Chinese government and Apple just continues. Unfortunately, huge opportunity still in China, and you just got to kind of deal with the bumps in the road with these type of announcements.
Well, bumps in the road might not be quite the right analogy. It's more like the Chinese government is a giant gorilla throwing barrels at you. And get a load of this barrel. This is the Chinese smartphone 100C, not the iPhone as you might have first thought. It's a company so small, it doesn't even appear to have its own website. And it just sued Apple in a Beijing court for stealing its design. Apple immediately appealed the decision, of course, so for now the iPhone is still on sale and a final ruling could take a full year. Now you might be wondering, a no-name phone company sues Apple for stealing its design when clearly it's the other way around. In what world does that happen? China.
It seems to me there could be some backdoor political cronyism happening here.
Because no matter how much money Apple invests in Chinese companies, or how willing it is to comply with Chinese censorship, the Chinese government has the same plan for Apple as it does for every Western company. Lure them in with profits, steal their intellectual property, and make homegrown Chinese knockoffs to eventually replace the original. But they've been particularly harsh with Apple.
It reflects the challenges that I think a lot of Western companies face when they go to China.
Chinese courts don't really care about copyright. If you don't believe me, check out this photo of my new iPhone. No, that's the 100C again. No, that's an actual iPhone. I mean this. My Chinese-made iPhone leather carrying case. In May, Apple lost the appeal to stop a Chinese leather goods maker from putting the brand label iPhone on things that are clearly not iPhones. And just a few days before, the Chinese regime had forced Apple to shut down iBooks and the iTunes movie feature just 7 months after it had been launched. This has been happening for a while. This is from March 2013. It's a CCTV yearly expose on scams, defective products, and lousy customer service. It also had some pretty rad song and dance numbers. And Apple was slammed for treating Chinese consumers differently from its other consumers around the world. The backlash was so intense, Tim Cook had to issue a formal apology. There's even evidence that CCTV hired celebrities to post negative comments about Apple. Now, this lawsuit in and of itself probably won't hurt Apple much. By the time the court case is finished, Apple will be on to the iPhone 7 and it will be a moot point. The real problem is that Chinese law and China's courts are pretty much like the Wild West.
Rules. In a knife fight, no rules.
And the hits Apple is taking in China has some investors scared. This one sold off $5 billion in Apple stock. Yes, you heard me right, $5 billion. Due in part to Chinese competitors and knockoffs, Apple had a 26% year-on-year drop in iPhone sales in China. So what do you think of the hits Apple is taking in China? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time. That would involve taking a living head and transplanting it on a recently deceased body. This Canadian so-called reporter, Amanda Conley, tried to undermine China by asking a question about so-called human rights. And this was Wang's response.